She ran through the crumbling ruins as shadows chased her, silent, swift, too intelligent to be human. Time warped around her like a trap, the ancient city collapsing and rebuilding itself in violent pulses. One teammate vanished into thin air, another whispered in a foreign tongue not their own. A human-sized doll stood waiting in the shrine, unmoving, but its shadow twisted like a predator. The line between memory and reality blurred. Could she escape, or would she become part of its story forever? This is a battle against time, identity, and something far older than death. A psychological horror buried beneath the dust until it woke. I was never supposed to lead the dig, but when Professor Moran fell ill, the team looked to me. We were 3 miles off the edge of Sonora, working through dry soil and rumors. The strange part wasn't the ruins. It was what we found buried beneath them. A curved metallic object, smooth, humming faintly. Evan thought it was a religious artifact. Priya called it a key. I touched it with my bare hand. Everything blinked. When my eyes opened, the world had changed. The heat was still there, but the sky was pale gray. The trees were older, twisted in unnatural ways. Buildings rose around us, stone towers, hollow and watchful. We weren't in the same place anymore. Not in our time. Ivy, that's my name, and somehow I was still me. The others began to speak strangely, like they remembered things they shouldn't. Evan talked of wars he never fought. Priya wept for children she never had. They were becoming part of this place. I wasn't. I could feel the pull, but something resisted it. My heart, maybe. Or the blood in me, from my grandmother who always warned me never to trust what sleeps beneath dirt. It was real now, all of it. At the center of the city, in a shrine carved from red obsidian, sat a doll. It was human-sized. Woven hair, painted eyes, white robes. The moment I saw her, I couldn't breathe. Not from fear, something deeper. Recognition. They called her Aura. The priests of Halara believed she guarded the timeline, and now she wanted us. One by one, the team went silent. Eyes wide, smiles vacant. They started kneeling, whispering, feeding her pieces of memory. Only one man stood beside me, Callan. He was not part of our original group. He said he was born here, yet he didn't belong either. He told me the city had been locked in this moment for centuries, waiting for blood that could unseal it. Mine. Aura moved at dusk. Her body never shifted, but her shadow did. Crawling closer like spilled ink, she'd appear behind us, beside us, in reflections. Callan kept me grounded. He taught me to shield my mind. But even he couldn't stop her from taking Evan. I watched him walk into the shrine and never return. We tried to destroy the device, the one that brought us here. But it wasn't a device. It was her heart, beating beneath the shrine, keeping time frozen. To end this, I had to give her something she'd never had. Pain, choice, a name. I walked into the shrine alone. I held the doll in my arms and whispered the stories she never lived. I told her what it was to love, to grieve, to let go. She shook, then crumbled like ash in my hands. The towers faded. The trees stopped groaning. Priya collapsed. Callan held me as the sky split with light. We were back. But not all of us. Sometimes I still hear Aura in my sleep, not angry, just lonely, asking if I remember her. I do. I always will. I've always hated dry air, the kind that clings to your skin and makes your thoughts feel sharp. But that's what surrounded us when we woke up. The city was still there, quiet and still, like someone had just stepped out and never returned. Callan stayed close, constantly scanning the shadows between buildings. Priya wasn't talking anymore. She just followed the group, eyes vacant, like she was trying to remember a song she never knew. Something was happening to them. We found a marketplace made of white stone, empty stalls, cracked fountains, everything covered in fine gray dust, yet there were fresh footprints, bare feet, small, leading toward a narrow corridor. Luca, the newest member on our team, insisted on following the trail. He was curious, said he felt drawn to it. I didn't want to split up, but his voice had a strange calmness to it. Callan pulled me aside. He said the city listens when you speak and remembers if you stay too long. We kept walking. The corridor narrowed, then opened into a round chamber where the ceiling glowed faintly like twilight trapped in stone. At the center sat a statue of a woman holding a child, except the child's face was missing. It looked melted. As I stared at it, my ears began to ring. Faint at first, then louder, like humming or whispering through water. I reached for Callan's arm, but he was already backing away. Then I noticed Priya. Her eyes were closed, but her lips moved. She was reciting something. a name, over and over again, not hers, not mine. But it sounded familiar, like it belonged to someone I should remember. The statue's fingers moved, just slightly, like a twitch. Callan shouted something, and the moment shattered. I blinked, and the statue was still again. Luca returned, but he looked different. His voice slower, his expression softer, almost too calm. He said we needed to find the nursery. No one told him about it. That night, we camped near the ruins of what looked like a temple. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard laughter. Not loud, gentle, like a child's game. I sat up and saw someone crouched beside the fire. It was Luca, but he was holding something, a cloth-wrapped bundle. His lips were moving again, singing. I called out. He didn't turn. I walked over and froze. Inside the cloth was a doll, the same one from the shrine. I whispered his name, but he didn't respond. When I reached for his shoulder, he looked at me, and I saw her eyes. Not his, not human. She had taken him. I screamed. Callan grabbed me and dragged me back. We ran. The fire behind us flared high, then dropped. When we turned back, both Luca and the doll were gone. Just ashes and a folded piece of cloth where they sat. The message was simple. One word burned into the fabric: return. The city had chosen its offering, and now it wanted more. Callan said we had to leave, but I told him we couldn't. If we ran, it would follow. I had to finish what I started. He didn't argue. He just nodded, and for a moment, I felt less alone. As the wind picked up, the walls around us began to hum again, the same melody Priya whispered earlier. She was already standing near the statue, her arms open like she was welcoming something invisible. I called out, but her voice merged with the song. Her body faded like smoke. Callan held my hand tighter. I didn't cry. There was no time for grief here, only echoes. We kept moving, deeper into the heart of the city, where the stones glowed with memories and the air grew colder, even though the sun never set. Ivy. That was the name the statue whispered back to me. My name. But not just mine. It belonged to someone who once stood here before. Someone who failed. And now I had one chance to finish what she couldn't. Before the city remembered too much and never let me leave. We stayed close to the stone corridor, marking each turn in the sand with chalk. The walls began to change. Carvings moved when we looked away. I told myself it was exhaustion, but part of me already knew better. Callan found a mural buried under ash. It showed two cities, one bright and full of stars, the other cracked and folding inward. Between them, a figure held something in her arms, a child, or maybe a doll. The eyes were hollow. Priya was gone. We didn't see her disappear. One moment she was behind us, humming, and then silence. Evan called her name twice before stopping. Callan said, "Don't look back." If she answered, it wouldn't be her. We reached a dome carved into the mountainside. The door opened for me, only me. Inside, air pulsed softly, like breathing. On the floor were dozens of dolls, old worn, but their heads turned in sync as I stepped closer. My heartbeat slowed, not from fear, from something else, familiarity, recognition, like I'd walked this path before. At the center of the dome was a pool of still water. I saw my reflection, but it wasn't me, it was her. The same woman from the mural. She wore my face, but older, wiser, broken. She whispered without speaking. I didn't understand the words, but I felt them. Loss, guilt, a choice left unfinished. Behind me, Evan gasped. Callan pulled him back, but he wouldn't listen. He stepped into the circle of dolls and dropped to his knees. He started laughing, then crying. His voice shifted. A second one echoed underneath, like two people speaking through the same mouth. I stepped forward, but Callan held me back. He said we needed to break the link. The artifact. It pulsed under the pool, a faint red glow. I reached for it. The water rippled but didn't resist. As soon as I touched it, memories flooded my mind, lives I hadn't lived, names I didn't know but felt deeply. The city wasn't evil, it was grieving, trapped in a moment where time refused to pass. The dolls were vessels, collecting the memory of everyone who entered, hoping one would carry them out. I held the artifact tighter. The dolls stood up. Their eyes glowed faintly. One of them reached for me, not to harm but to plead. It was a child's gesture. I hesitated. Callan stepped forward and said my name, Ivy. His voice was real, grounded, mine. I remembered who I was. I pulled the artifact free. The dome cracked. A low hum echoed through the ground. Evan's laughter stopped. The dolls froze. Then, as if released from tension, they sat down, one by one. Outside, the sky shifted. Clouds moved in reverse. The city began to fade. not violently, but like a memory dissolving after a dream. Callan grabbed my arm. We ran, not out of fear, but urgency. The sands were lifting. The path behind us vanished with each step. By the time we reached the surface, only wind remained. We didn't speak for a long time, just sat in silence, watching the desert stretch endlessly before us. I looked at Callan and asked if it was really over. He didn't answer, but I noticed something in his backpack, a doll. The same one that reached for me. Its eyes were closed now, resting. I left it there. I never asked how it got in. Some doors never fully close. Some memories never truly fade, especially the ones that never belonged to you in the first place. The winds shifted on our fourth day. It wasn't just the direction. It felt different, like something was watching the camp. Callan woke first, said he heard footsteps in the gravel. Evan brushed it off, but his hands shook when he packed his gear. I hadn't seen Priya in my dreams since the dome collapsed. It was strange how silence could feel louder than noise. We kept walking toward the northern ridge, led by symbols Callan decoded from the mural. He said it would lead to the original gate, the one where it all began. The terrain grew unfamiliar, the sky darker. There was no sun, no clouds, just a dim blue cast like we were walking underwater. Trees appeared, tall and pale, with no leaves. Their bark felt warm. Evan touched one and whispered a name that wasn't his. We reached the stone circle just before dusk. 12 pillars, each carved with a different set of eyes. At the center, a platform. Resting on it was the doll. Not just any doll, the same one from the shrine, but aged, cracked, almost fragile. I felt drawn to it again. Callan held me back. He said the city knew me now, that it was using familiarity against me. I wanted to believe him, but the pull was stronger than logic. I stepped forward and heard my own voice echo across the circle, except I hadn't spoken. Evan stood outside the ring, unmoving. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes glassy. I called his name, no response. Then the doll stood, not floated, not jumped, just stood and looked at me. I froze. She reached out and touched the platform. The stone flickered. A portal opened, not like a movie, not swirling energy. Just a clean black opening, like a cut in space. The air around it thinned. I couldn't breathe. Callan pulled Evan back, shaking him until he gasped. I was still near the center when the wind picked up. The doll turned to me and tilted her head. Then she spoke. Ivy. The voice wasn't hers, it was mine. Repeating, rewriting, a loop of my own words from days before played back in perfect tone. That's when I realized the city wasn't just watching, it was learning. She walked into the portal without a sound. The wind died instantly. The stone fell quiet. Evan whispered that it wasn't over, that this wasn't an ending. Callan agreed, but something about the silence felt complete. We spent that night near the gate. None of us spoke much. I wrote down everything I could remember, even the small things, the way the doll blinked, the feel of the stone, the warmth of the trees. At dawn, the gate vanished. The circle was still there, but the center was solid. No sign of the portal, the doll, or her voice. We began the hike back. On our last night in the valley, Evan brought out a notebook. He'd sketched her, not the doll, but the face she used, mine. Callan said one final thing as we left the ruins behind. The city didn't want to trap us. It wanted to be remembered. And somehow, I think it still is. Even now. Even here. Back in Arizona, I kept waking at 3 a.m. The apartment was quiet, but I could still hear the wind from the valley. Callan stayed in touch, sending cryptic voice notes, short and cautious. Evan hadn't spoken since we left. His eyes flicked when someone said my name. I thought I could move on. I thought I could return to normal life, submit reports, attend meetings, drink coffee, and forget. But that city left something inside me. Not a memory, a rhythm, something that pulsed under my skin when I closed my eyes. 3 days after I got home, I received a small box. No return address. Inside was a roll of film. I hadn't used film in years, but I still had my old camera. I loaded it and developed the shots myself. Every frame showed the same thing, the stone circle. Each picture was slightly different. In the first, the circle was empty. Then in the next, a shape appeared at the center. By the fifth photo, it was clear. The doll, standing again, facing the camera. By the final frame, she was gone, but the shadow remained. I called Callan. He didn't pick up. I sent the pictures to Evan. His reply was one word: stop. I began hearing things in my apartment, knocking, always soft, always from a corner I wasn't looking at. I moved my bed away from the walls. I stopped sleeping near mirrors. One morning, I found a thread on the floor, pale blue, same color as the doll's dress. I followed it. It led to my closet, tied in a bow. I didn't open it. I couldn't. At work, I saw someone in the elevator. She looked like Priya, but she didn't blink, just smiled faintly and stepped out without pressing a button. That night, I dreamed of the city again, but it was whole, alive. People moved through the streets. Some I knew, some I didn't, and standing above them, arms open, was me, or something using my face. I woke up with sand in my sheets. My apartment doesn't have plants, no soil, no sand. I vacuumed it and didn't speak of it again. I flew to New Mexico to meet Callan. He looked older, tired. He said the city chose us for a reason, not as explorers, as carriers, vessels to bring its memory forward. He showed me a journal. Every page was written in a language we never studied, but we both understood it. Not with the brain, but deeper. The memory behind the language, the feeling it carried. He warned me not to speak about it publicly, that the more attention it gathered, the stronger it became. I agreed, but I also knew I wouldn't stop documenting, not because I wanted to, because I couldn't help it. Every story I write drifts back to the circle. Every drawing, every sound, it all points back. On the last night of our meeting, Callan handed me a piece of cloth, same texture, same color, a piece of her dress. He said it appeared in his luggage without explanation. We burned it. But when I got home, there was another thread on my pillow. Some echoes don't fade, they follow. Quiet, gentle, just enough to make you wonder if they ever left. And when you ask yourself if you're truly alone, you already know the answer. 2 months passed before I returned to the museum. My research grant had expired, but Dr. Ayers asked me to catalog new arrivals from a dig near Oaxaca. I said yes. Not because I missed the work, but because I needed something to ground me. The city still lingered in my sleep. The shipment was ordinary. Clay figurines, tools, fragments, but tucked between broken bowls was a box wrapped in aged linen. No tag, no label. I opened it and found a doll. Not wood, not cloth, clay, with a face that looked too real. I froze. The face was mine. I laughed it off and called Theo, one of our archivists. He said replicas were common. I wanted to believe that. But when I checked the records, the box wasn't listed. Neither was the site. That night I left the museum late. On my way out, I passed the restoration room. The doll was on the table, except no one had placed it there. The lights flickered. I told myself to go home. I didn't. I returned to the lab and sat with it. Its eyes weren't painted, but hollow, carved deep. I leaned in, thinking maybe I missed a detail. Then something moved. Not the doll, the air behind me, a soft step. I turned, nothing. But when I looked back, the doll's head had tilted slightly to the left, the same angle from the last photo in the film. Theo texted me the next morning. He'd seen someone in the archive hallway, thought it was me. But I had already left hours before. I started keeping a journal again. Writing helped me think. But every page ended the same way. Her name, not mine. Hers, Ivy. The city wasn't calling me anymore. It was remembering. I showed the doll to Dr. Ayers. He asked if I'd made it myself. Said it resembled my features too precisely to be ancient. I told him it came in the shipment. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Theo came by that afternoon, said he saw the doll blink. I laughed, too loud. But inside, I was sinking. That night, I dreamed I was buried in clay. My skin cracked, my breath shallow, but I wasn't scared. I felt held. Then I woke and saw dust on my fingertips. I checked the museum cameras. Between 2 and 4 a.m., the feed cut out. When it resumed, the doll was gone. We searched every room. It wasn't in storage, not in the vault, not in restoration. But when I opened my locker, it was sitting there, upright, hands folded, calm. I placed it in a sealed case and locked it. But sometimes the glass fogs from the inside. Theo won't come near it. Dr. Ayers says it should be transferred to another facility. But I told them no. I think she wants to stay close. And some part of me wants that too. It's hard to explain. I walk the museum halls at night and feel something watching. Not with malice, with memory. Like she's waiting for something, or reminding me what was left unfinished. Sometimes I whisper to her before I leave, just a word or a question. Last night I asked what she wanted. This morning my journal had a new line, not written by me. It said, "Thank you for coming back." It was a guest lecture at a quiet college in New Hampshire. I was there to speak on ancient symbolism, but deep down I hoped the change of scenery would help me breathe again. After everything with the doll, the gate, the city, I just wanted quiet. One of the students, Arya, asked to speak after class. She'd found something at her grandmother's farm, an object wrapped in wax cloth inside an old wooden box. It had markings she couldn't identify. I agreed to take a look. We drove out the next day. The house sat alone on a hill, surrounded by frost-bitten fields. Arya said the box had been buried under the floorboards. Her grandmother never mentioned it, just left her a note before passing. Do not open it indoors. We opened it in the shed. Inside was a clay tablet, symbols carved in a circle. At the center, a small figure, arms outstretched, eyes absent. I didn't recognize the design, I recognized the feeling. I told her to keep it sealed. She nodded, but looked unconvinced. That night, I stayed in town. My hotel room was plain. No mirror, no artwork, but around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of humming. It was soft, close. I checked the hallway. Empty. Then I saw the mirror above the dresser. I hadn't noticed it before. My reflection was slower than me. When I tilted my head, it didn't. I turned it to the wall, sat in the chair, tried to calm my thoughts. There was a knock. It was Arya. She looked pale, said the symbols on the tablet changed. They now showed letters, names, mine, hers, Callan's. We brought it to the college the next day. Professor Lin, the folklore expert, ran tests. The tablet emitted a pulse every 4 minutes. Not mechanical, rhythmic, like breath. That night, campus lights flickered. Students reported voices in vents, shadows and reflections. I didn't sleep. Neither did Arya. At 4:07 a.m., the tablet cracked. A fine thread of blue mist rose from the break and traced a perfect line toward the archive building. We followed it. Inside, the air felt different. Not cold. Still, heavy like silence underwater. In one corner sat a familiar figure. The doll, same face, same silence, but now in a chair, waiting. She looked at me. Not with eyes, with memory. Arya stepped back. Her voice cracked when she said my name. I took one step forward. The air shifted. The tablet pulsed in my hand. Then she vanished. No flash, no noise, just gone. Professor Lin found us at sunrise. He said the tablet no longer registered energy, but it was warm to the touch. I left town that evening. On the train, I found a folded paper in my coat. I hadn't packed it. It read, "You brought me back. Thank you." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but the ink smelled like dust. Since then, I've kept moving, city to city, never long. Sometimes I see her in window glass, not menacing, just present, like she's still learning through me. Some things never close fully. They remain open just enough to breathe, just enough to remember, and memory is the oldest gate of all.